call and leave a message on your cell phone from the garage.
Okay.
And as long as, I'll get back to you as long as it's clear, you got to just back them up.
I had one question. I was gonna do it on Wednesday's chat, but I've been too long. I was doing that berry millet, and I put some, can I take that little saucer? Is that done after I, use a Q-tip to sash it?
Oh, yeah, could save it for the next time.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I should take
No,
it.
no. Yeah, just put it back in the jar, put it in the canning jar, and just use it for the following month. Yeah,
Okay.
you don't have to use new millet every time.
Oh, okay. Good.
No. Are you covering it when you put it
Yes.
out with the net or an old hose?
Yeah, like a basket. That way.
Oh, that would
Yeah.
work too. Yeah, just to keep the birds and the little critters out
Right.
of it.
Okay, good.
Chickens and stuff.
And
Yeah.
then every month around the same time, the same day, same hour, right?
Not the same hour, but
Oh.
it has to be within the same day, within, like 28 to 30 days after, otherwise you start all
You have to start all over.
over.
Okay.
I
All right.
wouldn't have
Can I
patience
just
for
space
that.
it out this much?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you something.
It's live right now for our
Oh,
book club people.
Is it-
'cause it's 7.
Is it 7?
Yes,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's going to be here a little closer to 7:30.
Okay.
So anybody that is live with us online, you can start asking questions in. That way we'll have them from when the author comes. But we already have Mary Ann and some of our in-person participants. But the author, Mike Ricksecker, will be here soon. So feel free to go ahead and put your questions in. Everybody's saying hello. So, and I'm assuming everybody here read the book, right? We're on it. We know what we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. Maybe you can catch up. So,
Yeah.
and we better show this one before we forget. This is next month's.
Yeah, let me come up there and get one and let people know. It is
Yeah.
available on the website. We made it
Melissa's
active.
got them here, but they're, on her website too.
Yeah.
And at least this one isn't as thick as this one. So,
We also have this one because we were going to decide between the two. This is another
I love that
good
one.
one. So that was
that one's good, but this one, if you look at the back, it talks about walk-ins and all that kind of stuff too, where that one does not.
All right, guys, this is the next one that we're going to be doing.
That we're gonna go.
And
ahead
it is
do
available on the
So,
website. It's active now.
yeah.
So if you want to grab it, I've got 5 or 6 copies now and more coming. So, but if you want first dibs, you can go grab it now.
So, okay, so. Saying the author isn't here yet, does anybody want to say anything bad about the book?
Who didn't like it before he gets here?
Yeah, who didn't like it before he gets here? We're not gonna hurt his feelings. I'm gonna get his feelings. Yeah, okay.
I didn't read all of it.
Okay.
I didn't read the middle of it, and every time I was going to, my gut says, don't do it, because it'd give me nightmares, or, maybe they'll come and see me or something. I didn't read all of it. The beginning and the end.
Yeah, I'm curious, has anybody ever really seen the shadow person?
No, I think so.
Okay,
It came out of my closet, and my husband saw it too. I mean, it was just standing right beside us. 2 separate occasions.
did he have a hat on?
You know what? I can't see anything without my glasses. I couldn't tell.
Okay,
But I wasn't afraid.
okay, okay,
I mean, I didn't feel frightened. My husband was freaked out.
okay, yeah, okay. Well, and nothing against guys, you're gonna take the brunt, you're the only one here.
I'm
It's,
used to it.
it's like, I'm the man of the house. Nobody's going to be in this house without me knowing it. It's like when I did a cop's house and the ghost was upstairs. He comes and I don't know where the upstairs is. I'm not going to go through somebody's house without them coming with me.
Right.
So the wife said, well, you take her up. And he said, okay. So we get to this set of steps, and it's a good set of steps up. And so I'm waiting. I mean, I'll follow him up. He knows where he's going. And and then he disappeared, and I'm thinking, where the heck is he? Then he says, I'm coming. And I said, okay. And I heard this clicking noise. And I'm thinking, what
He was
the
loaded
hell?
his gun?
Bingo!
Oh,
He was a cop.
Oh.
And he's standing behind me, and he's got his gun out. I said, she's dead. Where are you gonna go?
So Sapphire Manga asks you, Marianne, what did you think about the pictures in the book showing the figures?
He admits that a lot of these were recreated. They weren't all actual pictures, but from the stories that he got from the people that he interviewed, this is what they looked like. And, you know, his shadow people do a whole lot of stuff. I've never seen a shadow person do that much stuff. I really haven't. And I don't think that you can, I don't think a shadow person can just automatically crawl into your body. I don't think that's possible either, but some people think so. So, my books too, read half of them and throw half out. What works in my books works for me.
I got you a table up front. We were just kind of entertaining everybody while we.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
He's gonna go grab his stuff and.
Okay.
Okay, great.
If I can, one thing that I noticed in reading the book, and I've never had a shadow person experience. I've had a couple ghost experiences in my life, and I felt like a dark presence at one point. Not that I could ever see, but I felt that it was darker than the dark. But I wouldn't have called that a shadow.
No, that was just a negative, dead, earthbound spirit,
Right,
not a shadow person.
right. And again, like you have said, based on your ability, the energy they
Which
give
book,
off,
Sapphire?
it's
The
how
next
you're
one
going
or
to
the one
see
that we're
it.
doing now? Next one is this one.
So maybe.
Not 100%.
Maybe you could see just a blob, and I could see, well, I saw a silhouette, and you see the actual person that they were.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The one house that I went into, kids are really good at seeing shadow people. They really are. And I think they're so innocent, and they're good at seeing ghosts too. And when they're little, that's their imaginary friends, haha. They're really playing with somebody. And well, her granddaughter was playing with two kids in the neighborhood. So, but I remember going into one house one time, and as a rule, I do not allow children to be in the house if they were like 5 and up. You want your kids to know about ghosts in the house. I'll tell you, I'll leave, you tell your kids. That's not my job, that's your job. And so, but this kid was so adamant about this, and I said, well, leave him home. She says, well, my husband will be here. After you talk to him, my husband will take him home to grandma's. I said, fine. And I should wait till he's here so I can ask him.
Here he comes.
Okay. Is this gonna be big enough for you?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
So I can pull out another paper if you need, and I have an outlet on the other side.
Yeah, just place to set up a monitor would be great.
Stop.
All right, everybody. Local author Mike Ricksecker.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
And we have people in the back that are streaming from
Oh,
out
great.
of state too, even. So.
Fantastic. It's always a good thing.
Thanks so much for, coming aboard with us.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's cool when the audiences can meet the authors. I think that's a really good
Of
thing.
course.
So I was just gonna tell something that happened. So this lady said that her son, I said, he was like about 6 or 7, he could see a shadow person all the time. And I thought, okay. So I go to the house, and so the kid was a nice kid. I mean, he talked, he wasn't shy, he was a nice kid. And I said to him, so where's your shadow person? And I'm looking around, and there was a ghost in the house, I knew that, but the ghost wasn't in the room where we were. And he said, here he comes. And I said, oh, okay. And as he's talking about this shadow person walking into the room, I see a man walking into the room. And I'm thinking, okay. And the man I saw had a baseball cap on. Now, a shadow person, you can tell if they wear a top hat or a ball cap or a 3-pointed hat. The shadow, it shows you. And so I said, does he have something on his head? He said, yeah, he says, I think maybe it's a cap. And he said, and he's got it on his head sideways. You know how guys wear their cap? And he was right. So I was seeing this boy's shadow person as a real earthbound spirit. I don't know why. I saw him that way, and the kid saw him as a shadow person. Maybe when Mike comes up here, you can ask him that question. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay. But what other questions do you have that you got from the book?
I think one thing that I am not questioning, but my experience with the sleep paralysis. And my experience, I had something as a child similar to Mike's experience where I woke up, I saw a ghost at the end of my bed. It was an older woman and she looked angry, like she was yelling at me. I'm trying to sit up and scream. Nothing's coming out. I can't move. And she disappeared into my closet, which I kept my bedroom door shut. If I opened the door, it would go against the closet. So
Okay.
I had to go where the ghost went to get out to my parents'
Okay,
bedroom, which I did. Oh, I saw a ghost. Go back to bed.
right.
I didn't have anything else happen at that house. My mom did. She heard her name called from the bottom of the stairs. She was the only one home, had back issues, couldn't get out of bed. Someone was calling her name. She was alone.
Right.
But as an adult, my first marriage, my kids were little, and that dark entity I told you I felt coming in the hallway, I would have that sleep paralysis to where I was scared, I was frozen, couldn't move. And I had it here and there with no other ghost experience, but since I've had your quinceads, hasn't happened.
Never, yeah.
So
It's not to say they're still not in the house. Well, your house is protected.
Right.
But people that just wear the seed, at least it stays 3.5, 4 feet away from them. Whoever or whatever it is can't get close to it.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I did notice, and again, Mike addresses it in the book, is that when kids see shadow people, 9 times out of 10, they have red eyes. Either they don't have a face at all, or they see glowing red eyes.
Okay.
I don't know if it's to scare the child more. I don't know why. I don't have enough information on shadow people. You know, I just don't. Like I said, I've never seen one, so I don't know. And maybe it's because I see them like a normal person. I've always said that they are like a regular earthbound spirit. They're pure energy. It's how you are seeing them. Are you seeing them as a person, or are you seeing them as a shadow?
Right.
Which is it? You know, and this book opened my mind because I didn't think a shadow person could do as much as, you know, apparently they can do. But I don't know. What other questions do you have about the book? I'll tell you the part that freaked me out. That would be the thing that would burn my house down if I ever saw a shadow spider. I wouldn't live in my house with a shadow spider. I don't care what you say. No.
An army of them. Yeah.
No, an army of them jumping out at you?
Yeah.
Oh, hell no. That would never happen.
Just
Sure.
And especially with the queen hiding above the door.
Oh, yeah. No.
That would never
I
happen.
can't forget if I do it now.
Not too much scares me, but shadow spider, yeah, really.
Yeah.
No, I've seen shadow animals. I've seen snakes and I know dogs and cats and foxes and moose, and I've seen all that kind of stuff. But I've never seen, oh God, no. See, I like the idea that the animals that I see are big enough a spider can hide. And I will
Yeah.
tell you why I never like spiders, okay?
What's your story?
I have restless leg, so I sleep, if my legs get really bad, I'll sleep in the recliner in the living room, because I'll keep Ted awake, otherwise jumping around. So one night I was in the recliner and I fell asleep,
Let me go
and
fix that.
we have cats. And for any of you that have a dog or a cat, you know, with the blanket up to your mouth, and it's like, oh, I have cat hair in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, you can't find it, so you're trying to find this
Yeah.
cat hair in your
Oh,
mouth.
no, I don't want
No, and I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, this is a thick hair. It was a spider
Oh,
leg.
no.
I had a spider had crawled in my mouth.
Oh.
I now sleep with a mask on at night. I do, because I'm so afraid the spiders are crawling.
Yeah, yeah.
But they say an average person swallows about,
Yes.
what, 55 spiders a
A
year?
year.
A year?
3 or 4.
No,
I heard
no.
that.
So those masks are good for something other than COVID.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
I'm sure of that, so. How'd you like the book?
I did like it.
Good.
It was interesting to me when he was talking about, like we had said, how some people see it as a shadow, other people see it as a ghost, how some people can hear it telepathically. That's kind of where I get stuff. I get it telepathically as opposed to seeing.
Okay.
I've had very interesting conversations sometimes. and it's like,
With shadow people.
I can't say if it was shadow people or ghosts because I can't see. I
Oh, you
don't
can only
see
hear
anything.
who's
I
ever
only-
talking to you. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't really know,
Okay.
but
All right.
I think just some of the differences and everything was like, oh, okay.
Right.
yeah, I can
Okay,
see
it's
this,
up and
I can
fixed,
see
guys. I
that.
just
Yeah.
double checked it,
I've-
refreshed it.
I've
It is there.
known
I have 5.
Ghosts that
So there's
can
5 that you can order on the
influence
website.
people a
It's
lot,
there.
Especially
Sorry.
if they're right in your space, okay? And of course, if you're ever possessed by an earthbound spirit, then that your whole personality changes. You're a whole totally different person. But I never realized that shadow people could just pop in and out of your brain. So I do something different. What did you get off of that?
I think about shadow people just from reading that book a whole lot different, just from altogether when I'm, you know, even before thinking demonic. But then I'm not sure. Then I hear extraterrestrial. It's how you perceive them, and then when you're, you know, could be relatives, but you know, they dim when the light. It's a new realm. I mean, a new thing to hear about, like just learning about. It could be certain things that it could be.
I'm wondering, and one of my questions that I do want to ask Mike is that these shadow people that are aliens, are they jumping in and out of other dimensions, or are they on Earth? Or I do believe in aliens, so, but I don't know. To my knowledge, have never seen an alien ghost. Or dinosaur, Melissa, thank you very much. She was gonna ask next.
Right? Like, how come there aren't dinosaur ghosts?
I know, I don't know. I've never seen one, so, but,
No, but I think just reading this opens up my mind to be a little more, I guess, open-minded that it could be, something from a different dimension. It could be,
well, the fairies and the little folk jump in and out of other dimensions. Why can't they?
right.
And I agree with that. I think I don't know if all of them do, but I think some of them could.
Right, and then also depending on your level of ability in communicating with them, maybe you won't see them, maybe you see them as full-bodied, or
Right.
maybe you do see a shadow.
Can shadow people get in dreams?
Not so much. Not in dreams because they're more of a physical form. So if you're having a dream of something, sure you could have energy within the dream, but not like
Not in the
not
dream.
the full manifestation of the shadow person in the dream.
Okay, we agree on that, because earthbound spirits can't get in dreams either.
Right.
They can make your night miserable if they're in the room with you and you dream really weird and bizarre things, but they are not.
They're not actually in the dream.
Right, right, so, okay, about the same then. All right, that's good.
What do you want to touch on? Can we leave what he said?
Well, I mean, I was just gonna roll right into my usual presentation,
Go.
which if you guys want that, we can do that.
Got your
You
weapons.
all
Yeah.
apparently read the book.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Okay. So,
And this one is
well,
yours.
Thank you all for coming this evening. Thank you for having me today. This is actually a very busy week for me. All this week, Brian Cano, paranormal investigator.
Yes.
You know Brian Cano?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you guys
He's
hear
in
okay?
town. He has a history of the paranormal event going on at Grafton School starting tomorrow. So I do have information on the table for that if you'd like to come out. So Wednesday through Saturday. So he's got his whole exhibit there. We have presentations on Friday and paranormal investigation and other things on Saturday. But the exhibit's open all week. So Grafton School. All right. So one thing that as we roll into the talk on shadows. Let's see which slide are we on. Okay, so we are on the right slide. Good. Just make sure everything seems up there. I love this quote from Dr. Hansel as we get into this. There is no supernatural world. Everything that exists is natural. I wholeheartedly believe that. Sure, these things that we call supernatural, paranormal, things that happen a little bit more rare, but it's all very natural. These things do happen in our universe. And I love the tapestries here on the side. The one on the right actually uses some of my videos, so that's great. But it's all about the universe being connected. So I do have my docuseries, The Shadow Dimension. I don't know if any of you have seen that. Have? Great, thank
Just
you.
watched it last night.
Fantastic. So a 6-part docuseries that dives a little bit more into all this material that we're covering today. So it's running free on Tubi TV right now. All right, so how I got involved in all of this. You guys read the book, so you know, but I'll tell the story. So I was about 8 years old, woke up in the middle of the night one night, and this was a house in Massachusetts. And standing in the corner of my room was this tall, dark figure. Of course, I had no idea about shadow people, shadow entities, anything like that at the time. I just thought there was an intruder in the house who had broken in and was about to kill me. That's about what you think at 8 years old. Fortunately, I'm still alive to tell the tale, which is great. But it did get physical. It approached me, and I'm trying to scream. My mouth opens up, nothing's coming out, so I'm terrified. Then it leans over my bed, and I'm staring into this blank, dark face. There's no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. It's complete blackness. And it grabbed me by the wrists, crossed my arms across my body, and ran off down the hall, of all places, into a closet. No idea why I ran into the closet. But by that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off to my parents' bedroom screaming. And they're nice parents. They're trying to console me, calm me down, trying to tell me I just had a bad dream. But I knew I hadn't had a bad dream. I'd been awake for this whole experience. Now, this wasn't a haunted house. This was kind of a one-off experience at this location. Still really don't know why it, picked this particular night to do this and visit our home. But the next house I moved into, it had a little bit more going on. This was a house down in Worcester, Ohio. And as we're like unpacking boxes, putting things away, I kept seeing this figure standing in my doorway. It's different than the one that I saw when I was 13 now. It was a little bit more translucent. You could see a head, shoulders, and all that. And it was very fast. So I'd turn and look, and off it would go down toward my parents' bedroom. And this happened several times over the course of a few days, where I'd be unpacking boxes, putting things away, and there it was, and off it'd go every time I'd look at it. So after this happened a number of times, I approached my mom. I'm like, Mom, I keep seeing this in the house. Have you seen this too? And she actually said, yes, she had, which was great for me on a couple of areas. For one, it affirmed what I had seen. I wasn't crazy. Okay, great. Secondly, she said it in such a, I don't want to say nonchalant manner, but she was not alarmed by it. So, okay, this is happening here. I'm not crazy. Mom's not alarmed about it. I'll get playful with this thing. So I started calling him Tom, like peeping Tom. So every time that he'd, stand in my doorway, I kind of peek around the corner, hi, Tom, and off he'd go. And that lasted for about, I need to fast forward the slide there. That happened for about 3 or 4 months, just kind of subsided, and Nothing really happened after that with Tom. So I chalked it up to somebody that was there at the house, checking out the new family, deemed that we were okay, and went about its business. Shortly thereafter, when I was about 15, I had my first little paranormal investigation, which I had no idea it was a paranormal investigation at the time, but it was really the catalyst for what kind of sent me into this, had these experiences. And then all of a sudden I had a little investigation that I was just like, this is something I'm gonna be involved with for the rest of my life. And here I am. So as we get into this discussion, I love this quote by Mark Anthony from the Shadow Dimension docuseries. He says, "We may very well be dealing with several different entities, several different species, using a similar energetic modality in order for them to communicate or to visit what we call Earth." So as we look at shadow entities as a whole, we see that there are many, many different types. They seem to have a lot of different functions and could be a lot of different things, but they all seem to be showing up in our plane of existence with that same energetic signature that comes off as a shadow. So the way I have this presentation divided up is basically like my book, where we get into different types of shadow entities, get into the history behind shadows, talk about sleep paralysis, and then we talk about who or what they may actually be. All right, come on, click. There we go. All right, the humanoid figure. This is really like the most common type of shadow person that's reported. So this is what showed up in my room when I was 8 years old, the thing that grabbed my arms, crossed my body. They don't normally get physical like that. On occasion they do. But this is the type of figure that people report seeing at the end of the bed. Maybe it's standing in a corner like I did, or across a room or something like that. You may even see one walking through the woods. And it's just kind of like it's described. It is a humanoid figure, head, shoulders, body, whole gamut, solid figure, but there's no detail. You don't see eyes, you don't see nose. There's none of that. It's just almost like a walking shadow, just the whole outline. So I have actually caught one of these on camera. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. I kind of have an arrow pointing there. This was at the Campsville Grade School, Campsville, Illinois. And this was another one that was kind of playful. So this school was not in use at the time. They had built another school, so this one went out of use. It was open to us for a period of time. My ex-girlfriend's father had the keys. He used to be the mayor of the town. And it ended up being transferred to the local archaeological society, so nobody can get in it anymore for paranormal investigations. But we were there for a little while, did a handful, and this particular night, I don't know how well you can see it, but back behind the shadow here, there's a set of doors that lead to the boys' locker room and then downstairs to the basement. And we were hearing all kinds of noises over there all the time, so we'd go over there to investigate. And all of a sudden, everything went quiet over there, but we'd hear things going back over by the bleachers. So we'd go over to the bleachers, and all of a sudden we'd hear things going on back by the door again. So it was this constant back and forth, back and forth. And so this one time when I captured this, we're sitting in the bleachers, I'm panning the camera around. This is actually a still from a video clip, and you can actually see this thing walking a little bit across the floor. So we didn't see it with our eyes at that point in time. It was in review of the video footage. We went back the following day to do a height comparison and figured it to be about the height of a 10 or 11-year-old child, which makes sense being part of the school. And then we have all different theories as to why a 10 or 11-year-old child might still be at the school, but beyond the scope of this conversation. But probably human spirit. Then we have the hat figures. Everybody always wants to know about the hat men. They come in a variety of different shapes and forms. Most common is probably the fedora with the trench coat. Sometimes without the trench coat, the fedora is the most common. We also have the top hat, sometimes with or without the cape. I've heard reports of an archer-style hat. Somebody said baseball cap here.
I also said he had a baseball cap.
Okay, I've heard that a couple times here
Sideways. He
recently.
didn't have it on full, he had it on side.
Yeah,
Little
on
boy
sideways.
saw him like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard that a couple times here
Yeah,
recently.
now I was sitting there and I saw what he was seeing, but it was a regular guy with the baseball cap on sideways. He saw him as a shadow person. I did not.
Interesting. Okay. Wide brim hat. So all different types of hats. Most accounts have these depicted as a more nefarious type of shadow entity that they come into the room, they strike fear into the person, they feed off that fear, kind of like an energy vampire. That's kind of the most common type of case that you hear. There are times that you hear about these hat-wearing entities that they just come in and stand and stare, which is really kind of the most common function of a lot of these shadow entities. They stand, stare, and do a whole lot of nothing. But these are the more feared ones, the hat-wearing entities. And there's the hooded figures. This depiction here of the monk at an old abandoned abbey in Ireland. My friend Kat Gash was there. And in this particular case with the hooded figure, she was walking through the tower, just kind of exploring. Her sister was down below. And her sister kept seeing this dark hooded figure following Kat around through the tower. Kat didn't see it at first. But when she went to go walk down the stairs, she slipped and started falling. Somebody reached out and grabbed her. It was this hooded figure. Kind of a mixed bag with these, because that was a nicer report. That one's okay. That one's being benevolent, doing something nice. Other times you hear reports of almost kind of like with some of the more nefarious types where they show up at the end of the bed and lifting people by their ankles off the bed, things like that. But kind of mixed. The red-eyed entities, this again is kind of more nefarious types. People always ask me, what do the different colored eyes mean? We as humans try to categorize the different colors into different things. So do the red eyes mean that they're evil? Do blue eyes mean that they might be a little better? I can't really say one way or the other. A lot of the reports with any of the entities with eyes tend to not be as good. This depiction here with the red eyes, it was just standing in the bay window looking and didn't actually do anything. But we had the most malevolent case I've ever been on, which was Edmond, Oklahoma. We filmed that for the show The Haunted. In that particular case, the family was experiencing this entity with the red eyes, primarily the adult daughter of the house, Taliesin. She kept seeing this thing appear in her closet. It was terrorizing her, it was terrorizing the cat. A lot of other things are going on within the household as well. So we were called in to actually, we did a lot of investigations of the house to try to determine exactly what was going on and who or what this thing may actually be. And we filmed a cleansing of the house. We had Carl Johnson, demonologist, come out for that. And that was a totally insane night. But one of the other things that happened during that case was this mist. And in this particular investigation, we investigated there probably about a half dozen times. The cat started getting really skittish, and it was moving about from the living room into the dinette area, into the kitchen, and off to the over by the bedrooms. And I'm following it along, and all of a sudden stopped right in front of Taliesin's doorway. This is the room that's having the most problems. And as I look up, I see why the cat stopped. There was this giant black cloud in the middle of the room. It was just, the best way to describe it would be a black cloud. Some people report like a shadow smoke. It's amorphous in nature, doesn't really have a form. It's just like steam, but it's black. Cat took off around the corner and off into the living room. I got silly, tried to take a flash photograph of the thing, which just kind of obliterated it. And it was kind of slowly dissipating away when I took that photo. And by the time it got dark again, the flash was done, the last bit of it dissolved away. People ask, okay, was that the red-eyed entity forming up? Not really sure. Or was it the other way around? Maybe it was, it had been the red-eyed entity in the room and it was dissolving away. We don't really know for sure. That's the cat. And usually I have a video clip. It's not going to play right now, but there's a video clip that goes along with that I usually show. So then there's the wisp. This is more of what I saw when I was 13 years old, had moved into that house in Worcester. This is something that's very translucent, very fast. Sometimes you get the outline of a human, kind of like I did. Sometimes they're just, they might be like tall, narrow. You're just getting a real quick glimpse of the shadow, and it just, boom, is gone like that. So where I saw this again in that very, very fast form like that was at a restaurant called Johnny V's in Muskogee, Oklahoma. and we're going to circle back around to this a little bit later. So in this particular investigation, I was just doing a final photo sweep of the restaurant. We were pretty much done for the night. A couple guys up in the bar area, a couple others around the front restaurant area. And I walked through the main door of the kitchen, and all of a sudden I just saw this very quick shadow dart across the room. And I heard the bang of this. It's a flimsy metal door. You can kind of see it in the photo there, here. And it's a door that waiters and waitresses would use to carry large trays of food through. So I had to be very light. You could tap the thing and it would move. But yet when you heard the bang, it didn't move. And so the big question became, why? And I called out to the other, hey, you guys hear that? You're like, yeah, we heard that. For a little while, I thought they were messing with me. They had thrown something at the door. Or they're trying to spook me. I even walked through the door and looking down the ground. No. But they couldn't have thrown anything from where they were at anyways. A couple were upstairs and the others were way out in the front. And even if they had thrown something and it hit the door would have moved. So we'll circle back around to what I think happened there. Then there is the crawler, and this is exactly like it sounds. The thing crawl around on all fours. Has somebody seen one?
No, just Mary Ann's face. She's like,
Oh, okay. You're not going to the crawlers, huh?
What's that one show that we watched, paranormal, caught on camera?
Okay, with Brian, yep.
And there was one that, it was like a crawler,
Yep.
and it was creepy
And that's what they're like. Yeah, they're crawling around on all fours like a crab.
and fast.
Yes, and very fast, very fast. And where I actually saw one was Blackbird Church out in Olive Township, Oklahoma. I include this photo. This has nothing to do with the crawler, but it's a fantastic illuminated ball of light. I am not an orb person. 99% of the photos that people show me of orbs are just dust or moisture. But this is a real good one because that was a ball of light that we actually saw, and I got it on camera. And it was there in the church when we first walked in. And it kind of rose up and was gone. But this is the room in question here, down in the basement. And one of the objects that it actually interacted with, kicked or something, was a bottle that's right there. So we were in the basement, just doing some EVP work, what have you. And this shadow slipped in through one of the windows, and it started whirring around us. You just saw like these long arms and legs, very, very fast. It was on the walls, on the ceiling. At some point it hit that bottle, hit a railing at one point. Our electronic equipment started crackling, all that stuff. And the medium that was with us at the time said, why don't we try singing some hymns, singing some prayers, kind of put a more positive energy into the location, which we did, and slipped right back out the window. But yeah, it's just like it sounds. It's crawling around on all fours. All right, so those are the various different types. But these things have been around with us for all time. So take the history back to ancient Sumer with this. It probably even predates this, but this is where we first start seeing some of the accounts of various type of shadow entities. And this is more of like a sleep paralysis type of description of the Udug or demon known as Alu. Now, ancient Sumer, when they talk about demons, very different context than we think of it today. So Alu, and this is not a depiction of Alu himself, we don't have one. This is just ancient Sumerian art to kind of tell the story. But with Alu, he, like our shadow entities that we talk about today, had no facial features, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing like that. So featureless, hovered over people at night. He also had no arms or legs, so which was really strange, no limbs. And this was known as a binding demon, a binding Udug. So you had the sleep paralysis aspect along with this at night. And what the Sumerian shamans would do is they would invoke a good Udug or a good demon to combat Alu and to drive him out so the person would no longer experience sleep paralysis. So those are kind of our, first tales of this sort of phenomenon. Ancient Egypt, now they believed in 7 different parts of the soul. This is a nice depiction from the tomb of Rennefer at the Theban necropolis. And in their belief of the 7 different parts of the soul, at death, most of the different pieces would go on to the constellation of Orion. But the Kabit, or the shadow, would stay here on Earth. The Ka would as well. That's the animating part of the soul, but for a little while You'll notice in a lot of ancient Egyptian tombs, they have like a false door there. And that's so that the Ka, after hanging around for a little while and doing whatever business it needed to resolve, could use that door to, again, go to the constellation of Orion. But the Kabit stays here on Earth. And so this depiction here shows the shadow or the Kabit staying by the tomb while you have the bobbers going off to Orion. In a similar fashion, you have some different Native American beliefs that, and it depends on which tribe. Each tribe is a little bit different. So you have some that believe in 2 parts of the soul, 3, 5, whatever. It varies from tribe to tribe. And they may not even have this belief, but the Choctaw do. They believe in 2 different parts of the soul. So at death, the Shilluk would go off to the land of the ghosts. You had the Shillambish, the shadow part of the soul, that would stay here on Earth to roam around. So similar type of concepts to ancient Egypt there. I'm going to skip the George Washington thing for now. We get into the spiritualism movement with Madame de Esperance. She's a controversial figure from back at that time. She was a physical medium. That's not what we're concerned about here. What I found fascinating about her story was her origin story. She grew up in a haunted house with 2 different types of entities that existed there. Some were shadows, some were ghosts. She was actually afraid of the ghosts. And when those would appear, she would actually run to her shadow friends for safety. She was friends with the shadows while she was afraid of the ghosts, which is very interesting. When she got older, she got married, moved into another house. There were shadows there as well, but they were not the friendly shadows that she had experienced as a child. These shadows were different, and she was actually afraid of these particular shadows at that house. So they varied from location to location. All right, then there's old hag syndrome, and this is where we start getting into sleep paralysis. And this is the famous painting by Henry Fuseli, depicting the, instead of the old hag, he has the ghoul sitting on the chest of the woman, and there's the mare looking on. So it's the nightmare painting. And what I find fascinating about old hag syndrome is you have all of these different cultures from all over the world for thousands of years reporting. They were not supposed to have been connected at all, really. Reporting the same type of phenomena. Now, they may call it something different. They may have, it'll be a different name. They'll have some legends and lore that surround it, but they're all reporting the same type of phenomena. So we have, for example, Fiji, Kanatavoro, eaten by a demon. Thailand, Payam, witch riding. Sardinia, Mudadori, chest-sitting ghoul. Brazil, Pisadera, old hag who steps on chest. So they're all kind of describing the same type of thing. I'm not going to read off the whole list. And this is just a partial list. You can find lists with all these different phenomena from all these different cultures. And that's amazing to me because it kind of rolls right into our whole predicament with sleep paralysis and what the medical community likes to say about this. Let's talk about it since we're talking about old hag syndrome. So you've had sleep paralysis.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I have as well, but a very different way than most other people. So most people have it where they wake up in the middle of the night and they can't move. I've had it where I was awake and all of a sudden my body shut off. My mind was still awake. I was still cognizant of everything going on around me, but my body was shut off. The way I was able to get out of that, and both times we were in a work setting, which was not good. The first time I was in the military, and you don't want to get caught sleeping on the job while you're in the military. Not a good idea. So I was really frightened just from that. Again, I was cognizant of everything going on around me, but my body could not move. What in the world do I do here? So what I ended up doing, and there's nothing going on with shadows around me. It's just, I can't move. So I started wiggling a toe, or trying to wiggle a toe, which I finally was able to do. Okay, great, I got a toe going. Let me try to get another going. And I was able to do that. Let me get a foot going. I was able to do that. Kind of worked up my leg to my body until I was finally able to wake up my head. Okay, I'm out of it. Second time it happened, it was still disconcerting, but since I'd already been through it before, it's like, okay, I know what to do, and I was able to get out of it. So a very different way than most people experience it. Most people experience it like you woke up and it was happening. Yeah. And it's very frightening when that happens.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Medical community likes to tell us that, well, the shadow phenomenon is a result of the sleep paralysis, that we are hallucinating when we wake up, that part of our dream is still playing out. And I have a problem with that for a couple different reasons. One, people experience shadow phenomenon all the time. We don't have to be asleep for it. It definitely can happen when we have sleep paralysis going on, but it happens at other times too. I've already been talking about times of being awake, putting things away in the bedroom. There it is. Seeing it on paranormal investigations. People see these things all the time. Also, the idea of it being a hallucination from a dream, we dream about all kinds of different things. You might have an airplane or a train in your dream. You might have bushes or trees in your dreams. These are not things that are appearing in your room. It's always this person. I've had dreams of being on stage with Motley Crue, and I've never woken up. This is true. I have had these dreams, but I've never woken up to 10,000 people in my room and the pyrotechnics going off and all that. So it would be a lot of fun, but this never happened. When this happens with people, it's somebody in the corner of the room, or at the end of the bed, or at the edge of the bed, and they're paralyzed. So what's going on here? All right. So this is what I believe is going on. We each have a toroidal field of energy that surrounds us, that extends out several feet. So you could have your back to a door, might not hear anything, but all of a sudden you feel like a presence in the room. Okay. When it comes to while you're sleeping, people who have had children will definitely relate to this, and my youngest son Cameron was notorious for this. So a child wakes up in the middle of the night, and they've had a bad dream, you drink of water, and you use that, whatever it is. And usually they come up and they tap you on the shoulder or shake you awake or something like that. But sometimes you have that child that doesn't do that, and they just stand there at the edge of the bed and stare at you. It's kind of creepy.
What do you want?
Yeah, exactly. What do you want? And like I said, my youngest son Cameron was notorious for that. And all of a sudden I wake up and oh my God, Cameron, what are you doing? You tell me, I had a bad dream, need some water. Okay, let's go take care of it. Tap me on the shoulder next time something else. Yes, it's creepy. But what was it that woke me up if he didn't touch me or interact with me? Well, like I said, we each have this toroidal field of energy that surrounds us. I felt his presence. His energy crossed into mine, and that's what woke me up. And so I believe the same thing is going on with these shadow entities, that they're in the room. They could be in the corner, end of the bed, edge of the bed, whatever. We feel their energy. That's waking us up. Sleep paralysis is a real biological phenomenon. It exists. So sometimes when that shadow entity wakes us up because we feel his presence, the sleep paralysis is happening. So I think it's two different phenomena that can happen at the same time. And when it does, it's very frightening. For one, you can't move. There's somebody or something in this room. You see them. You're thinking intruder, that sort of thing. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I can't move. What's going on? And your adrenaline starts to race. And it's very, very frightening. So I definitely feel for you. But I believe it's two different phenomena that are happening at the same time. So, all right, what are these things? So I love this quote from Mary Marshall from The Shadow Dimension, episode 1. She says, "We do a disservice to ourselves in the field by trying to find out what is this, and then this is the answer, and this is the only answer. There's multiple answers." And that's very true. So I get asked the question all the time when I'm doing different interviews and things like that. What's a shadow person? It's like, well, I have this whole hour-long presentation. Actually, this is more like an hour-and-a-half long presentation if I do the whole thing. I have a whole book on it. It's not that easy of a question to answer because these are a lot of different things. So what can they be? All right, let's start with human spirits. So sometimes, yes, a shadow entity is a human spirit who cannot fully manifest as an apparition. I didn't used to believe that. So at the beginning of my book, I say, I reserve the right to change my mind because we learn things as we go along. So what I knew 10 years ago is not the same as I know and believe now, and that's going to change 10 years from now. Unfortunately, you see a lot of academics that get pigeonholed into one belief and they stick with that for their entire lives and never change, even though they end up with all this evidence that's getting thrown at them, and they'll stick to their guns. And it's like, just, kind of admit it. We're learning here. So with shadow entities, years ago when, I was writing some of my different ghost books and I was giving presentations, people would ask me about shadows. And I thought there were two different things. Shadow entities are shadow entities. Ghosts and apparitions are their own thing. They're separate. But I had a lot of people telling me different stories about how they thought some of these shadows that they were experiencing were, relatives. Maybe they were historic figures at a particular, house or, building or whatever. And so I was hearing a lot of these stories over the years. I was like, well, okay, I guess I can give that a little bit of credence. And my good friend Rob Guttrow, psychic medium out in Maryland, and he does a lot of work with pet spirits, pet communication. He has a nice little section there in the book on that. And so I definitely recommend his Pets in the Afterlife series. And he told me some years ago about his experience with his aunt, how she had appeared to him as a shadow. She expended so much energy, she couldn't manifest as an apparition, but came off as his shadow and wanted him to deliver a message to his mother for her. It's like, well, okay, I trust Rob with my life. He's like one of my best friends in the world. I can believe Rob. Okay, fine. Some of these shadows that we were experiencing are human spirits. I believe that. Sometimes seeing is also believing, and that's the case with this little girl. This happened a few years back, and we were doing an investigation at Mineral Springs Hotel, Alton, Illinois. It's part of a Paracon that we had put together. And we were in the upstairs area of the hotel. It's the very end of the night, and we're in Pearl's room in the corner suite of the hotel, just doing some EVP work, not really getting a whole lot. So I start hearing some noises from down the hall. So I go out there and take a look down the hall, and all of a sudden I see this black smoke start to billow up, and it's like, is there a fire going on down here? What is going on? Because this smoke is coming forward. And as it's coming forward, it starts doing something very unusual. It starts creeping up the wall on the right-hand side of the hall, and creep back down and creep back up. All the while it's coming closer and closer until finally, the one time it creeped up that wall on the right-hand side, it morphed into the apparition of a little girl. All the others had joined me by then, and we're trying to coax her closer. Come closer, come closer. And she stopped right by this doorway to a room where people have been reporting for years of a little girl spirit being in that room. Now, I'd investigated there many, many times before. I'd investigated in that room, but never really got a whole lot. So I was like, I don't know if there's a little girl in there right now. But people were, putting teddy bears and things like that in that room, trying to interact with her. And now I was seeing her with my own eyes. And she had actually morphed out of shadow smoke. One of the interesting things about that experience is we all saw her a little bit differently. So I saw her fully formed from the head down to about her knees, and then she started to dissipate away. Others saw her fully formed from the feet on up to the head, and then started to dissipate away there. And this is kind of like a little sidebar, but what I think is going on there is we each went back to that field of energy that we each have. Our own personal resonance. Humans have a certain range at which they resonate within. But every single person is a little bit different. Nobody's on the exact same frequency. We get pretty close, but we're all a little bit different. So that's why some of these people that I was with were seeing her differently than I. And of course, the girl herself is expelling her own energy as well on whatever wavelength she's on. That's why some people will see, you could be standing right next to a person during a paranormal investigation. Did you see that? No. It's like, how? We were looking in the same direction. How did you not see that? And it's because they're resonating at a different frequency than you are. And some people, I think what ends up happening, so some people see more shadows than apparitions. Other people see more apparitions than shadows. And I believe that's because our resonance and vibration gets in tune to certain frequencies. So I've been seeing shadows since I was very little. And so my energy became in tune to those shadows. I'll still see apparitions. I mean, I saw this little girl differently than others, but I still saw her. But when there are shadows around, my energy will tune into that, and I'll be like, okay, there is a shadow. Another person with me, their resonance might not be in tune with that, so they may not see it. they may be more in tune to something else. That's just a little sidebar. All right. Shadow people, extraterrestrials. I was on Ancient Aliens talking about this a few months back. Really interesting topic, and I think that some shadows are apparitions in a couple different ways. So for one, physically, if there are ETs coming down here on a craft and walking around, they could be utilizing some sort of cloaking device. So it's something that, okay, think about if we go to a planet and there's intelligent life on that planet, we may not want to be seen right away. We might want to examine things first, check things out, try to figure out if these things are, if they're going to be hostile or not. So we might try to utilize some sort of cloaking technology. Well, these things, probably not fully understanding the physiology of our eyes, if they are utilizing some sort of cloaking device, it might not quite work perfectly. So even though they may be thinking that they're fully cloaked, they may be coming off to us as like a shadow, or some people report seeing a shimmer man sort of thing. There are a lot of similar experiences that people have. When you look at reported shadow phenomena and reported ET experiences, you see a lot of very, very similar reports. People laying in bed at night, waking up, they're seeing this thing at the end of the bed, in the corner, or whatever. They're having the sleep paralysis. Some people reported as shadow phenomena. Other people report it as an ET. Of course, they have the whole abduction thing going on as well. Well, people with shadow experiences report being touched. I have my arms crossed across my body, so something was going on. So you see a lot of similar experiences between shadow phenomena and ET, especially in the night encounters. So this was a interesting story with Albert K. Bender. These different hat-wearing ETs. So he had a book that came out, Flying Saucers and the Three Men, which recounted experiences that he had back in 1953. So the year beforehand, 1952, he had founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau. And this was big during the big UFO flap of that year. This is when they were, had all those witnesses report the UFOs in Washington, D.C. and other places as well. So he had founded this bureau to study all of this phenomenon going on. And it blew up big right away. It went international. They had offices in the UK, in Australia, and this is back during a time where there was no internet. You weren't emailing people to try to organize anything. Long distance calls were expensive. That's back when you had to call after 9 o'clock at night so you get the reduced rate, right? Yeah. So much more challenging to try to develop something international at that point, but he did. And yet, just after a year after he founded it, boom, he ended it. And nobody was quite sure why. There are some suspicions throughout the next 10 years. And finally, he wrote this book and released it and stated what exactly happened. So he came home from, I think he was at work, but he came home and he's walking up into his bedroom, and all of a sudden materializing through his room, this is his own drawing of it, were these 3 shadowy hat-wearing entities with glowing eyes and smelling of sulfur. And they told him, you need to stop this research right now. Scared him to death. He believed that they were extraterrestrials. But according to his story, what they told him was that they were actually stationed in Antarctica, harvesting resources out of the water. This was a 15-year assignment that they had. When the 15 years were done with, he could go ahead and tell the story, but not until they left. And so that's when he wrote the book. So I hear that story and I'm like, wait a second. Hat-wearing, shadowy entities, glowing eyes. This sounds like a shadow person story. That's what I'm relating to, a paranormal experience. Other people hear the story and they're like, that's a Men in Black experience. These were the Men in Black. So it's almost kind of like, depending on what lens you're viewing it through, paranormal, extraterrestrial, conspiracy theory type of lens, it's almost like, okay, these are almost all in the same thing, but it's just a different viewpoint that we have on it. Another interesting one that I came across here recently, hooded extraterrestrials. So I was watching a presentation by Grant Cameron, a really fascinating researcher in the field. And he was telling a story that was in the book American Cosmic by Diana Pasulka. And in this story, there was this individual named Tim. was working on the space shuttle program. And one day, General comes into the office. They're looking for different experiments to put up on the space shuttle. And he had this idea. It needed a zero gravity environment. And the general just said, no, we're not going to do that experiment. I don't see how it would actually pass. It would fail. Stupid idea. Don't like it. But Tim was able to get one of his PhD friends that actually, and that was another thing, Tim didn't have the right credentials to actually forcibly get it on there. He got one of his guys with one of his friends with the right PhD to get it on there anyway. They figured, well, at least we could write a paper on this, even if it fails. But sure enough, it actually worked. So they come back down. They end up having this big meeting in Washington, D.C. regarding these tests that they run up on the space shuttle. And they think, okay, they're going to get some kind of award or something for this. Another general comes in to the meeting at that time, and he's just demanding who put this test on there. He's all upset. Everybody points at Tim. And, the general's like, "Where'd you get this idea?" And Tim's like, I got it from a memory. It was kind of weird the way the general was asking, where did you get the idea? And Tim's response was even stranger, that he got it from a memory, and that's what he stuck with. They gave him like a little bonus, and not long later, he actually left that position. He and a friend of his actually developed a company based on that technology that they had proven up in space. So back to Grant Cameron. He tracks this guy down, and they're having lunch. They're talking about these different things that happened while he was in the space program. So he asks him, "Okay, what in the world did you mean by a memory? That just doesn't make any sense." He's like, "Well, I can't really tell what happened because they would never believe me." And what actually happened was he had woken up in the middle of the night one night, and there was a tall, dark, hooded figure standing at the foot of his bed. And when he woke up the next morning, he had this idea in his head. It had been embedded into his mind by this hooded figure. But of course, he was not going to tell the general this story. It would be considered too crazy. Yeah, not a good idea. So, I experienced shadow entities when I was in Alaska in the military, and you were not going to tell anybody about that. You find yourself down in mental health and your security clearance pulled. So yeah, he wasn't going to say anything about that. But people talk about, are these, extraterrestrials, are they here to help and try to benefit mankind? Well, I don't believe all are, but some may be, and this may have been one. Shadow entities as tulpa. So the tulpa is basically the idea of a Buddhist thought form, that from your mind and the energy that you put forth into the universe, you can create your own sentient being. People relate this to the Slender Man phenomenon these days. We all know that for a fact that was created it was a Photoshop contest in whatever the name of the forum was back 15 years ago. And that's where the story started. But people believe that over time, so many people put so much energy into that character that it became real. You can actually, if you look up, just Google tulpomancy, you'll find people online that are trying to create their own sentient beings. This has actually become really popular with the younger generation. They're trying to make their favorite anime characters come to life through thought form. It's interesting. So where this comes into play with shadows is with Walter B. Gibson. He, under the pseudonym Maxwell Grant, wrote the old shadow stories, the old Pulp Fiction novels that became the radio show, The Shadow Knows. I actually first came across a story in, of all books, The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. The story has absolutely nothing to do with the Mothman, but he had it right there at the very beginning of the book. And basically what happened was, after Walter P. Gibson moved out of his house in Greenwich Village, New York, new people moved in, they kept experiencing all this shadow phenomenon. And so they thought the house was haunted. They're bringing in different paranormal investigators like Hans Holzer and others. And some people believe that this was the ghost of some Revolutionary War soldier. Well, Gibson was like, no, absolutely not. The house wasn't even haunted while I was there. And John Keel did some research on this and kind of backed up Gibson with his findings, saying, no, actually what happened here was Gibson had put so much energy into creating his shadow character, it actually manifested in the house. And that's what people are seeing walking around, is the shadow. Kind of interesting. So what I believe a true shadow person is an interdimensional being, something that's crossover from some other plane of existence. I talk a lot these days about the connected universe. I love this photograph. This is actually an X-ray of the universe. And what you're seeing here are filaments of gas, and all the yellow balls there are actually galaxies. You can see how they're all connected. So everything in our universe is physically connected, energetically connected, whether it's our planets, our galaxies, our solar systems, but also the dimensions as well. And so I go back to that story at Johnny V's in Muskogee, Oklahoma, that one where it hit that door, but the door didn't move. Why did it not move? So I think what happened is when I walked into that kitchen at Johnny V's restaurant, perhaps it saw me as a shadow, perhaps it saw me as a ghost. I don't know. I scared it. And it took off running. And I think what happened is, in its dimension, in its plane of existence, it blew right through that door. That door opened wide, and it ran right off into the dining room. But me, I'm in a different dimension, on a different plane of existence. And so I didn't see that happen. However, sound, I was able to hear it, because sound works on a different frequency, a different wavelength. So I was able to hear it, but not see it. We actually used this. We actually used this idea in the Alaska Triangle television show when we talked about the missing Douglas airplane in 1950, where many people believe that it actually disappeared through a portal, never to be seen again. However, there's some radio chatter that was able to be heard afterward. We weren't able to confirm it was from that airplane, but there's really nothing else to kind of line it up with at that time. Where would this be coming from? So a lot of people believe that it passed through that portal, and the radio chatter was able, because it's on a different wavelength, able to come back through. We also see some things like this at the Conjuring House as well. There's a fantastic story that Andrea Perrin shares with her and her mother Carolyn. Everybody talks about Bathsheba, and there's about 5% of the movies is actually true. There's so much more that went on at that house over 10 years of time. One of the more interesting incidents, Andrea and Carolyn were in the parlor. It was late at night, and all of a sudden in the dining room, there's just out of nowhere morphed this colonial family. Woman was cooking over the hearth in the dining room, which at that time in the 1970s had actually been closed off, but there she was cooking over the hearth. Kids are running around, and there were these two gentlemen that were sitting at the table with these pewter tankards, and they turn and they look at Andrea and Carolyn as if they were the ghosts. And the one turned to the other and said, well, would you look at that? So really, really interesting incident. This is more of what we would call like a time slip. And at the Conjuring House, time slip, they've had a lot of shadow phenomena. Straight up from that room is where Andrea, Carl Johnson's reported it, his first investigation there, where they've reported this shadow smoke coming out of Andrea's room into the middle bedroom. And there's a photo here that I have, they call it interdimensional phasing, where basically that energy is welling up. There's a room in the basement. It's called the well room because there's a well there, and it's still open to this day. There's water in it. The walls of that room are made of limestone and capped with granite blocks. I don't know how many of you know how they constructed energetic ancient temples and out in Egypt and locations like that. That's basically the construction: limestone, granite, water. So now you have this little power plant down in the basement of this house. Straight up from there is all this fantastic activity. And so the one day that I was there at the house, you can kind of see, I don't know how well you can see it, But everything in the foreground here is perfect. It's crystal clear. But once you get to this doorway and looking into the other room, everything's shifted to the right. This window here that you're seeing here, there's no window there. That's actually a chalkboard that's here. That window is behind this piece of wall here. So how in the world are we able to see that window when it's supposed to be behind there? It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. So this is what we call interdimensional phasing, where there was enough energy that was actually shifting the entire scene. Pretty unusual. Time travel, so we talked a little bit about time shifts. Trying to confirm it is difficult, but there are theories about people that are actually traveling through time that know how to do it, people from the future coming into the past. And, how would they be appearing to us? Possibly as a shadow. I include this photo here. This is actually the time traveling hipster photo from the 1940s, where you have the out of place guy with the sunglasses here. Kind of looks like my buddy Johnny Enoch, so I always give him a hard time about that photo. Like, Johnny, what in the world were you doing back in the 1940s? That's a cool photo. We'll go through these a little quick here because I know we've been running a little bit long. Astral projections. So people who know how to astral project, how do they appear to other people if somebody was able to actually see them? So an example I like to give is grandmother lives 500,000 miles away from her family. A little hard to go visit, but she knows how to astral project. So say she goes to visit her daughter's house and see her daughter, her granddaughter, shows up in the room and just kind of, they're laying down peaceful at night. What if one of them wakes up? That energy is in that room. Her consciousness is sitting in that room. It just come off as a shadow. Is it one of these shimmer people that people are seeing? Possibility. Light beams. So this is, I know it seems kind of unusual, taking into account, okay, light beam, shadow, how in the world is that? Well, our eyes only see into a certain spectrum of light. And so there are certain light frequencies and sources that are just beyond what we can actually see with our own eyes. Some of these different light beams, people like, okay, hospital incident. People reported walking in seeing light beams near their loved one. People have also reported walking in seeing shadows near their loved one. I don't necessarily think that they're two different beings. I think that whatever light that they're radiating may be on a different frequency at that particular moment. Also, and I don't recommend doing this, but we all know this happens. If you stare at a light for long enough, like a light bulb, what do you end up seeing? A silhouette, right? I don't recommend it. I don't want any medical bills coming my way for staring at a light too long. Simulated universe. So not to get too deep into the ideas of the simulated universe, if we are in one, but what would a shadow being be if we were in a simulated universe? Could be, if you think of the concepts of like, okay, simulation, game type environment, sort of, could they be, kind of the game master kind of controlling, or the area, or doing some maintenance in the area, that sort of thing, or are they just kind of data collecting, watching, observing, seeing how people interact within that environment? I do believe that on some level we are in a simulation, but it's more organic and biological, not a computer simulation. Our ancient cultures actually talk about it, not in those terms, but when you think of the idea of reincarnation, we come from somewhere, we come down here, we're here for a little while learning something, we pass away, and we go back to the home world, and then we come back. It's the same thing that you do when you log in and log out of a computer simulation. So then there's the big question, are they evil? Well, I think I've given enough stories so far here today that I think you see that, okay, some can be nasty and nefarious. Some can actually be benevolent. The one hooded figure story that I did not tell was of a woman whose child was very ill since he was very young. And she kept seeing this dark hooded figure go into his room. She would see it pass down the hall and into his room. She was thinking it was a harbinger of death, that his doom was coming, and that made her very sad. But one day they're at the doctor's office, and they've been running the same tests over and over again for months. And they just really couldn't figure out what in the world to do to try to get this boy better. Well, suddenly, okay, they're about to run the same tests all over again. And the doctor suddenly turns his head as if somebody was whispering in his ear. He's like, wait a second. Turns his head as if somebody's listening or talking in his ear. And he turns back around and says, you know what? Let's try these other tests. And so they went off, they did these other tests, discovered that no, they didn't have the right diagnosis. The illness was actually something else. They were able to treat it. The boy was fine. They never saw that shadow figure again. The mother attributes the whole situation to what was whispering into the doctor's ear was actually the shadow person. Even though they couldn't see it in the doctor's office, she believed it was there. That when it was going into the room, it was figuring out what was wrong with the boy, went and told the doctor, and everything was fine. Those are her words. So yeah, I don't believe that all of them are evil. I think shadow people are like humans. Some humans are good, some humans are bad. Some shadow people are good, some shadow people are bad. It just depends on the particular shadow, what their agenda is, why they're here, all of that, just like we would be. That's where I can do. So thank you very much for, I know you guys already read it. Thank you for I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So,
Any quick questions?
any questions?
Online, they were asking where they can watch the documentaries and find out more for you.
It's free on Tubi TV right now, so just look up Shadow Dimension on Tubi TV.
That's good.
Okay.
It's another streaming service, so you can add it as an app to your smart TV. You can watch it on the computer, on your phone. Yeah.
TUBI.
Yeah, TUBI. You can go to also shadowdimension.com, and I'll have the link is there for it.
All right, guys, if you have any questions about the book, go ahead and ask.
So what was your question?
Is it a possibility when you're talking about sleep paralysis? Because I do energy healing work.
Okay.
Is it a possibility that in some of those situations that there's an etheric connection made from that being, and that maybe that particular being is living off another being's energy, and there's an exchange of energies and emotions, because some of those dark beings have very, very low vibrating emotions. When there's an exchange and a person gets flooded with it, that it's overwhelming.
Well, and that's kind of the idea of like energy vampires and that sort of thing. So when that happens, because I've had that whole sensation of like somebody like pressing into me. I wasn't able to see anything there, but that whole pressing down. So it's kind of a related phenomenon. Now, I do believe, again, I always go back to, I believe it's two different phenomena that are happening at the same time. But, I do include, especially with the hat entities, that they have this ability to feed off of that energy. Now, could they also be putting energy onto a person as well? That's also a possibility, because we are talking about everybody has energy. So if they know how to manipulate that a bit, that could be happening, sure.
You know what I really enjoyed about your perspective? It's very neutral, you're very open, feels really good, and that's what I really enjoy about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I try to keep all these different possibilities open, because you have sides that are very, very polaristic, and I have found in most cases in life, it's usually somewhere in the middle.
And you're very propelled by curiosity, and I love curiosity. It really moves us forward, so
Thank you.
I could feel that too.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Anything else?
So, I've seen ghosts, I've never seen a shadow person, so maybe like Marianne, I see them as ghosts, as people.
Yep.
And I might not see a shadow person, whereas other people might see them as a shadow. That's good, 'cause that freaks me out. I don't like that dark stuff,
Right.
I mean, one time I woke up in the middle of the night, and there were these two orbs, they must have been 7 feet high. They were spheres, and one was behind the other, and it was like, took a 4-inch paintbrush and painted like gray, different places, and then the places it wasn't, it was clear, but it was like looking through a campfire. It was kind of like this, and they were like shimmering, kind of, and I looked and I just thought, I don't know who you are, where you're from, stay as long as you want, and go back to bed. And I turned over in the morning then. But there was something there, there were 2 of them, and they were about 7, I don't know what it was, something.
Something.
We have a question from online. Heather says, I have a question regarding your friend that was depressed, the one that you had the talk with in the car when you witnessed a multitude of shadow
Yeah.
figures at the edge of the trees. Do you think the shadow figures were actually partly responsible causing her depression?
No. She went down there because of her depression. I'd gone down there to basically talk her off a cliff. That was her old childhood home that she had gone down to be at. The house was abandoned at the time. She had parked behind it, and without getting into too much detail, she had sent me these messages that were very, very concerning. So I went down there to help out. I believe what was going on was they probably picked up on the energy of what was happening in that situation and may have just been curious as to what was going on. I think that they weren't causing it.
She was already depressed, wasn't
yeah.
in the house or anything already. She was just sitting out back,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I had a question, or maybe not a question, but we had an earthbound in the house, and then I think it does relate with the paralysis because my daughter, she was 18 at the time, and she had sleep paralysis. She kept on saying she couldn't move, she couldn't. All of a sudden, Mary Ann came over, probably about a month later, sleep paralysis gone.
Interesting.
I think it can go either way. I really do. I have a question.
Sure.
How do you protect your house from this?
That's a wonderful question because a lot of people have different ways of protecting themselves. And my belief is that whatever you truly believe in your heart is going to protect you, it will. So some people take, a Native American approach. Some people take a Christian approach. Some people get all the crystals out. So, and I believe that if you truly believe in your heart that that is going to work for you, then it will. So, if I go into a Christian household, I'm not going to do like a Native American cleansing or something like that, because they might not believe in that that's actually going to work. And if they don't believe it's going to work, it's not going to work. So,
Now, these shadow people, when you have actually had, or the people that you have interviewed for your book, were there conversations between the shadow people and who saw them?
on occasion. So it's kind of interesting because nobody had brought up the whole topic of how do they speak.
Yeah, right.
Until like a few years ago, I was giving this presentation, Ocean State Paracon, and my friend Carl Johnson was in the audience, and he suddenly threw out there, do they have voices? And I was like, that's a great question. And I hadn't had, of all the years that I've been doing this research, nobody had said, hey, I heard him speak to me or say this or whatever. But ever since then, I have all kinds of people coming to me now with these different stories and it's telepathically. They're not hearing an audible voice. It's a thought transfer into their
Some
mind.
people actually hear, like a lot of
Really?
people hear mommy in the middle of the night. And there's no mommy. I mean, as the ghost doing that.
Interesting.
I believe most of it is done telepathically.
Yeah.
I do not talk out loud. I hear them talk in just how I hear them, and they could be talking in any language and I understand it,
Okay.
which is ridiculous because they don't.
Mhm.
But I can when they talk. So I was just curious on how you protect your house, or if you know you have them, how do you get rid of them?
Kind of the same thing
Okay.
with the cleansings. Find out, okay, what's the belief system of the person in the home, and then we'll figure out a cleansing method accordingly.
Okay. Good enough. Any other questions?
You guys got any questions online? We're kind of keeping it to the book and the topic here. If they wanted to find more of your books online, so any of our friends that want a book that's not A Walk in the Shadows that we have, like, do they go to Haunted Road Media?
They can, best place would be MikeRicksecker.com.
Okay.
The Haunted Road Media Center really needs an update. So MikeRicksecker.com would be the best place to go. Yeah.
Okay. How do they keep up with you and your travels and your exploits? And your...
They can find me, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those locations. ConnectedUniversePortal.com, which it's my online learning portal, but I keep it up to date every week with with different video blogs. I got like monthly Q&As. I have a weekly class that I post out there all the time too. So yeah, a lot of stuff going out there.
Guys,
Again, thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you for
coming
having
out.
me.
I absolutely appreciate it.
I actually have a few more people on the other side doing a development circle that I might even go and they're like, here's your chance to go talk to an author on shadow people and sell more books for you, possibly. So,
Okay.
So, and I do encourage people to come out to Brian's event this week at the Grafton School. So I have the flyer here if you want to take a look at the information there. But yeah, it's tomorrow through Saturday.
What is involved in it?
So he has a traveling history of the paranormal exhibit that goes through like from the early days, like spiritualism movement. He even has some stuff that predates that. He has a lot of artifacts, video presentations that he runs, a lot of different. It's basically a traveling museum that he brings around the country. So, and then we'll have presentations and things like that as well.
I know some of your books was like haunted in other states. Are you doing a haunted Ohio?
I have Campfire Tales of the Midwest, which is not exactly haunted Ohio. I have one Ohio story in that. One of these days, I've kind of been in a lot of other projects.
What about Ohio?
Right. So
Will you sign books for people?
I will sign books. I have other books
So if
here.
you guys want your
and,
book signed, come on
yeah,
up and
and I
get
also
it
have
signed.
an email list if people want to get on my email list.
Have fun.
Oh, fantastic. Yep, I can use your and
We already have it on your books today.
okay.
Oh, every now and then they pop up. From Borders yet? Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yes, I've been using it for
Summer
years.
solstice.
and I
You look
feel
familiar.
like
I
it.
think
It
Yeah.
used to come to her
The
book
year of the
club.
day it was in
Yeah, me too,
September.
that's why.
Yes. Going there on the summer solstice.
What are you doing here?
The second one she said.
What did
here.
you?
Oh, she had one already?
Oh,
Yeah,
geez, oh, man.
I know, I told
Yeah, one of these times. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, now the COVID's basically over.
I know, right?
Yeah.
For now. Yeah.
Don't get started. I already sleep with the mask on the night.
There you go. Thank you very
Very
much.
interesting read, and it definitely opened
Something I
my
wanted
eyes
to share,
to
just
things
you were
that
asking
I hadn't
about.
considered.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Experience
Thank you.
attachments, how do we protect ourselves? And just my own personal with energy healing work.
Well, I can use yours, I can use mine, whichever.
I work with it separately, but I do
Keep
have
one
myself
up
in
for
my
her.
house.
All right.
And I feel
And your name is?
sensitive to everything, I feel everything, and I really.
I
My spiritual guides help me make these bundles.
Yeah.
Constantly. Like, you're actually doing the work.
Good,
It's like they showed me the intentions and they do the work.
good.
But what I've learned is, it doesn't, it's a separate thing for myself.
Right.
And so as I've been working over years, because I'm so sensitive, I work so much, and I didn't used to have any boundaries, and that
You're
makes sense.
protecting yourself.
I am now, but I didn't have boundaries, but I didn't know, it's like, there's a conscious level and then
Thank you
like.
very much.
So,
Hi.
but it was all part of my
And your
learning
name is?
experience, so
So-
they were teaching me as I was learning, and every time I would release
Right.
more, they would teach me how to.
Okay, yeah, because I could just tell by the look on
And
her
so,
face that she's
as I'm
nowhere
pushing it
near
all
my
out
lips.
and then replacing it with.
So I'm just
You know,
curious,
the
like,
healing work that they bring in,
Right.
what I found is I've
What-
been visualizing it inside my body.
yeah.
Because
If
everything
anybody
seems
else
so
right
wanted to
off
get
then.
the next
That's right,
book,
just
there's a
goes
few
through
cards,
that
I can bring that up
If
here
there's
with
anything
the
in my
the
body.
card.
Okay.
Has a lesser vibration, something to that's that.
Right,
I'm gonna
right,
hold on to it.
Right.
Yep,
So,
yep.
it's really about working on yourself.
Thank
you. That's really good.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Right. Right.
The high vibrating
Right.
emotions, and then you're not gonna track it, it's like a magnet.
Right, just reaching.
Did you see Ted over there?
No.
He's over there with my stuff.
I know, I noticed.
That's what works for me, though, is working on myself separately and thinking of that, you know, two individual things.
Yeah,
That's
right.
because they could come from another dimension, this healing house.
Yeah, you can't do one thing if it's affecting you, right?
Yeah. I just have to share what's worked for me.
Yeah, good, Good, glad to know.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Just sign it? Okay, great.
See, I'm so glad I
Appreciate it.
I'll stay right where I am. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Melissa.
Are you in line or did you get yours already?
I got them.
Yes.
Interesting, yeah. That definitely happens, but yeah, that's interesting. You went to Egypt in that moment.
I live in Egypt.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, sure. And then one time, we were working on somebody and I blinked and all of a sudden, it was like I had a mask on. That's all I could see and I was like, at my office I've had for 10 years, it's like I'm just observing things. I think somebody does something and you just see, and I just go, yeah, and then, and it, you know, it was like very, like I'd never been there before, I was looking at something. And all I could see was, tunnel vision. Really.
That's really, really interesting, yeah. Yeah, we're moving through time, but it's not the way we're conventionally thinking it is. Hi,
Hi, thanks so much for your work.
thank you. And your name is?
So is this the one?
I think this is for next month, and I think you said this energy, and it's getting to know the things of light. I call them things of light. You said
Okay.
light things, but I call them things of light.
Okay, sure.
Because they women work in the light,
Mhm.
through love and truth and kindness.
Yeah.
Through source energy, and so they'll give me the wording, and I have to feel it.
You said just keep going.
We're able
It's
to
not-
do this, you know? I call it meditation.
And we're finally done.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Right.
And then it's also included, we just kind of sort out the layers as I learn myself.
And the side over there, so like there's a whole other thing going on.
Fascinating.
Right. I was gonna say,
And I've always, I've taught me a long time.
Yes, the plug.
I'm going to this place.
This side of the wall.
This is true. Thank you.
Yeah, he's got both.
Yeah, put it right here.
Yeah.
Can I just have you? Sure. I can do it with a card. Okay.
Oh, geez. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.
Here, I'll hold on to the next.
Hi.
The new paper.
Cash card. I think that way to take a card.
How much is it, by the way?
It comes to 1728.
Oh, you got one of those.
Mhm.
swipey things.
Yeah, ever since,
let's
it's 12 years ago now.
Fight with a doctor.
Turns out any lunatic
Yeah.
having set up.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, it's a historic building. They do the history tours during the day, and then they have the ghost tour stuff at night. So they have it set up right in the
You
lobby.
print it?
And the whole day, I got people coming by, I'm just like 14 sales because I never wait to take a card from my phone. Yeah, it's crazy.
Scam calls. Thanks.
Well,
Well, at least it says scam call, you know. It's possible.
Oh, really?
Yep, I kicked him out. All right, guys, we'll see you on Wednesday or actually tomorrow morning for our ghost talk. Thank you so much.
You can see right into that office.
Are there any last minute questions before we go?
Yeah, Alaska's really piqued a lot of people's interest here.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the morning.
Yeah, sure. And your name is, sir? Eric.